Hello all, this is Barbara Mann from Your Empowered You, and welcome to our video on disruptors in the workplace. Are they a friend or are they our foe? So what do I even mean by a disruptor? Well, the definition of a disruptor is someone or something that interrupts an event, activity, or process by causing a disturbance or problem. Or another definition is something that drastically alters or destroys the structure of something. So as you can see that by definition, a disruptor in the workplace can be something very positive and be a friend, or it can be something that may not produce positive results and could produce even more problems. So usually though, disruptors in the workplace, these are people who are trying to obviously produce positive results. So in this video, we're going to talk about, how do you identify a disruptor? So there's varying degrees of employees who have sort of that disruptor quality. And what are the various perceptions of that other people have of disruptors? Some people may perceive them as someone who is very positive for the organization, and some may view these folks as someone who may be kind of the enemy of an organization in various degrees. And what are some of the reactions that employees have? Usually the reactions include things like resistance. Some people embrace disruptors. Some people are indifferent. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So how do you identify a disruptor in an organization? Well, really, it could be any employee, but it's varying degrees. So it could be an individual contributor up to a C-exec. And usually these people are the ones that they ask questions. They're more of your why do we do things a certain way? How long have we been doing this? When something like this happens, what do we do? So they ask questions, but more often than not, they're listening. They listen intently to what people are saying. They observe processes, people, things of that nature, and they're constantly thinking of ways to improve, to streamline, to create efficiencies, to improve workplace environments for employees. So they're constantly thinking, how can we make improvements to employees, to customers, to everything? But they ask questions and they listen and they're observing. They really take a lot of things in before they do anything. So usually a lot of times, we talked about individual contributors, but a lot of times new leaders, they feel like they need to be sort of a disruptor, and there's really various degrees of disruption. If you're a newer manager, usually that disruption has a smaller impact. You're trying to maybe make your mark on something. Maybe you're making a slight change to, a process, or making some improvement to something. That's a disruption because you're changing something. But those are sort of smaller impacts, usually more collaborative in nature. You have approvals and all those sorts of things. But the point is, it's a varying degree of disruption. And individual contributors do the same thing. So you can have an individual contributor who's really trying to look and make improvements to an operation. And these are great employees to have because they're constantly trying to improve things, to come up with great ideas. But they are disruptors in their own way because they're trying to change something. They're really, they're change agents. The more significant impacts to organizations are the ones that are your, say, new C-execs. So these are your new, head of operation kind of things. And really what they do is they have a fresh perspective on an operation. Really what they're doing is they are pretty much hired in to observe an operation, kind of understand the whole holistic picture, how everything is working together. And usually what they do is they do make changes. Some C-execs make huge change. I'm sure we've all seen that. It may even involve a 5-year plan that involves reorganizations, consolidation. But usually they are your biggest disruptors, and what they're thinking about is disrupt or be disrupted. So most likely those people are hired on to make some significant changes to an operation, to really try to improve the employee experience, the customer experience, and streamline the operation to really get it to the next level. Those are big disruptors. That's kind of, again, your new execs. So what are some of those perceptions of a disruptor? Well, if there's a disruptor who's really trying to improve the working conditions, benefits, salary, anything to do with, how it impacts the employee outside of work, they're your friend, right? They're really trying to help you in your everyday life. Also, a perception of a friend as a disruptor, they really articulate their visions very, very well. You can see where they're taking the operation. They have a plan. They communicate very, very clearly, and they communicate often. You can see it. You understand every step of the way, whether it's a 3-month plan, a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan. They're usually collaborative in nature. These are perceptions where the disruptor is considered a friend. They incorporate a lot of people's ideas into their plan, and so everybody has this great buy-in. That's fantastic to have that sort of perception. When their perception is more of like a foe, an enemy, is when people kind of see that there's minimum collaboration, there's minimal communication, things like there's replacement of workforce, maybe there's a layoff coming or a consolidation. Other things that kind of create that anxiety, and as a foe, is there's a lot of training going on and people are having to understand their roles all over the place. And so that it creates that sort of perception of a foe. And a lot of that perception can be corrected by people understanding the vision, by communicating, by giving people a lot of notice. If there are some reorganizations, what is that going to look like? Is that going to come through maybe attrition? Is that going to come from relocation? What does that look like? But the more that people can communicate and articulate a vision and a plan, the more that you alleviate the anxiety of the perception of being that foe. So, the reactions for people with those kinds of disruptors in an organization is resistance, especially if it's big change. People don't like, a lot of change. There's a resistance there. They get angry, they get mad, sad, all those sorts of emotions go on when there's huge upheaval in an organization and you have this disruptor who has just basically set the organization upside down. Some people embrace disruptors, especially if it's done right, where people are understanding that vision, and even though there's big changes going on, they see how it's going to sort of unfold. They kind of understand the changes. They see the possibilities. They more embrace that sort of change agent, disruptor type of person. Some people are just indifferent. They probably have seen this come and go. Maybe they've been in the workforce for a long period of time. They have been in their careers for 30 years. They just kind of go with the flow. They know that it'll all work out in the end, or they just have an indifferent approach to it. But usually those are kind of the 3 reactions that I've seen. You either have resistance, they embrace it, or you're just indifferent. Again, you've seen it before. You'll get through it. You just go with the flow. But some of the key points, to have disruptors is a good thing. These are the people who, if it's done correctly, really helps take an organization, take the employee experience, to take a customer service experience to a new level. They're there, they're identifying potential issues that can be corrected. So, the disrupt or be disrupted is very true. One thing that's going to happen is you're always going to have change. Now, with that said, change just for the sake of changing, that is not good. That becomes a disruptor that creates the problems, the negative impacts. That's not what we want. You don't want to just change and be a disruptor for the sake of changing things. That's just unproductive, creates chaos. Most likely that person will be fired. And then someone else has to come in and kind of correct the issues. But going back to disrupt and be disrupted on a positive note, if somebody does it right, again, the business will be in a better place. Customer demands will be rectified. Employee relations will be rectified. But, things will always need to be changed. That's the bottom line. You cannot be stagnant. Things will change. If you don't change, you'll eventually be obsolete. As we've seen with technology or society as a whole, it keeps changing, keeps moving forward. And if you don't keep moving forward, you go out of business, right? You'll be obsolete. So, large disruptions can be extremely positive for an organization if done right. If they're not, they can be negative. But usually someone who is doing a large disruption, they probably have done sort of these kinds of change management things in the past. And so they kind of have a pretty good idea what needs to be done. And even if you're at a C-exec level and you're doing large changes to an organization, you obviously have to get approvals from the other C-execs as well. So you're not just blindly doing it. That's not going to work because there's other departments that are all connected together, right? So let's wrap this up into both. Let's just reiterate what we said. We will always have disruptors at all levels. It's healthy. It's good for an organization, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you're a new manager, whether you are a C-exec. It's good to have disruption in an organization. It's varying various levels. It could be just a tweak to a process, or it could be a large reorganization to help the company become more efficient, again, to be more employee-centric, to be more customer-centric. You want your disruptions to obviously be positive. There's various perceptions to disruptors. Some can think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and other people think they're the enemy and the devil. It really depends on how people go about this disruption. There's ways to go about that creates a positive experience, and there's ways to go about it that creates a negative experience. But the larger the disruption, guess what? The larger the reaction. So if it's big, it's going to cause a big reaction. That's where all that change management discussions and planning comes into place. But, personally, my opinion is that if disruption, big disruption, small disruption, whatever the level it is, it allows your organization and your departments and your teams to move forward positively if done correctly. So we need those disruptors. We just hope that it's done correctly, it's done collaboratively, it's done effectively, it's done with transparency, it's done with great communication, it's done with great vision. So I hope you've enjoyed our short video on the role of disruptors and why they actually are important to your organization. So for additional resources or to schedule a session with me, please visit my website at www.yourimpoweredyou.com. Please email me at bman@yourimpoweredyou.com or feel free to give me a call at 916-633-2555. And I thank you very much and have a very empowered day.